I am standing on the platform of one of Paris's largest metro stations, Bibliothèque François Mitterrand. My Wednesday evening class, 4 straight hours of lecturing by French psychology professors at Université Paris Diderot, has just concluded. My commute home to the north of Paris takes 45 minutes, which I spend underground, disconnected from cell phone service as a solo traveler. Just another body crammed into a sea of commuters. Any effort I could make to find a place to sit would be in vain for at least 4 stops. For the most part, these trains are quiet. No one speaks to each other, save for pairs of co-workers heading home for the day, or mothers trying to keep track of children darting around at knee level in the crowd. The roar of the train on its tracks drowns out much of the ambient noise, though I still eavesdrop on the English and French conversations that rise to the surface of the din. Sometimes I feel superior. Tourists desperately trying to figure out directions, mispronouncing the names of landmarks, butchering the language with their harsh American accents. Other times, listening to cheerful gossip between friends, or watching lovers intertwine against the side of the car, makes my heart ache for my own friends and our life at Wesleyan. When I arrived in Bordeaux, France, for the 2-week orientation my study abroad program requires all students to participate in, I was full of excitement and overjoyed to finally be embarking on the semester-long adventure I had been anticipating for years. When the Air France attendant at JFK spoke to me in French, I nearly yelped in excitement. The first 2 weeks were overwhelming and full of sightseeing and tourism, meeting French people of all ages, and trying to remember the difference between the passé composé and l'imparfait. Before I knew it, we were touching down at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, and just like that, I was being dropped on the side of the road at my new home, clutching my suitcases and wondering what to expect. My host family lived in a beautiful 2-story apartment where my host parents, Jean and Isabelle, had a bedroom downstairs, while 4 of my 5 host siblings lived in bedrooms on the 2nd floor, and I had my own apartment, bathroom, and separate entrance. I loved the children, Constance, Maëlle, Alix, Pierre, and Constantin, who ranged in age from 3 to 5. I loved our rowdy family dinners and the neighborhood, which was a recently gentrified corner of the 9th arrondissement, just south of Montmartre and the infamous red light district of Pigalle. However, I was unprepared for the darker side of studying in such a big, bustling city. It was huge, sometimes dangerous, often confusing, and never very welcoming. My new study abroad friends lived with host families across the city, none of them much closer than a 30-minute train ride. And of course, everything was in French. Classes began, and for the first time, I had no central campus where I could hang out with friends during the day. Instead, I got to spend an hour or more a day commuting, and the bulk of my social interaction came from laying on the living room floor, playing card games with my host siblings. No matter how many hours I logged, hurtling through the tunnels beneath my beautiful city, no matter how many times I raced down the station stairs to catch a train, no matter how many confused tourists asked me for directions in broken French and sighed in relief when I replied in fluent English, I was still an outsider. The sentiment of belonging, the warm feeling that I could so readily conjure when pressed shoulder to shoulder with fellow harried rush-hour commuters, disappeared before I even pushed through the metro turnstile. As my fellow travelers rushed to their offices, appointments, dates, homes, families, I was left behind in the cold, acutely aware of how very insignificant and very alone I truly was. I gave an Oscar-worthy performance in the role, impatiently tapping my heel on the platform, avoiding eye contact with homeless men who asked me for change, deftly navigating the maze of halls leading from one train to the next. But in truth, I knew I would never fit into this world, this bustling but unforgiving city that usually offered foreigners nothing but disdain. Life as a student abroad was not what I had expected, and as I struggled to adjust, the transition was only made harder by the constant reminders I was provided by social media and updates from friends that made it seem that everyone but me was having the time of their lives. My iPhone provided me an IV drip of videos of friends in European nightclubs, photos of them with new friends from other universities exploring new countries, Instagram and Facebook updates about how they never wanted to come back to America. The experiences that really ignite personal growth, the hardships and the loneliness and the isolation, are hard to capture in just a picture or video or Instagram post. Photos of my time in Paris tell a story that is far from the truth. Beautiful landscapes, museums, art, food, and trips are only a fraction of what made my time abroad what it was. Trying to keep up with what friends across the globe were doing, always engaged in a silent competition over who was having more fun, was exhausting. By the time my first month in Paris had come to an end, I was sick of the constant bombardment, and when my phone was stolen on a metro ride to the Aquarium of Paris with my host siblings, it felt for the first time since I'd landed in France like I could take a deep breath. Being disconnected allowed me to take a step back from my worries over feeling lost or alone and instead see what was clearly before me. The city was still big and hard to navigate, but every day when I hurried down Rue de Rochechouart from the metro station to my apartment, I began to fill with excitement and anticipation rather than loneliness and dread. My host siblings screamed to welcome me back from my day, grabbing my legs and pulling to show me a new toy or game they'd invented. The hours spent playing card games no longer felt like a consolation prize for a friendless junior on her semester abroad. Instead, they became the things I loved most about Paris and overshadowed all the challenging parts. At home, I never felt like an outsider. Instead, I felt like a real member of this new family as we ate every dinner together, spent our Saturday nights curled up on the couch watching animated French cartoons, and competed over who had received the better grades that week. My desire to have the quintessential abroad experience, one that would make for a good Instagram post or Snapchat story, dissolved, and I realized that what I'd been looking for on those crowded metro platforms had been right before me all along. Leaving Paris that December, I didn't cry over leaving behind fresh baguettes or the beautiful Seine. What I knew I would miss most were the things that can't easily be captured in an image. The feeling of belonging so hard to derive from tourist attractions and crowded trains that can't even easily be put into words. I didn't find myself in a Parisian nightclub or even a bistro. Rather, I found myself at home, at the dinner table, trading stories from my day with the new family I never even knew I needed.